The farming sim genre has seen many advancements over the years, and in that time, Harvest Moon stood out as one of the best, which continued when the team packed up and changed their name to Story of Seasons. Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life was originally released in 2003, but my journey with the series wouldn't begin until the DS release of The Tale of Two Towns. Given that the trend of releasing older titles to newer platforms is still going strong, I was surprised about the release of Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life. However, this would ultimately give me a chance to play an entry that I missed out on with modern updates. Sadly, the age is showing through limited events and slow pacing. Before we get into the review, we'd like to thank our Patreon supporters for making this possible. Please take a second to check out patreon.com/noisypixel to support independent game journalism. In Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life, the destination is Forgotten Valley, a quaint location where everyone just idly tends to their relaxed way of living. You assume the role of a character who is lost and doesn't know what to do next. So you move into the valley and decide to take over the old dilapidated farm that your father once tended to. And from there, it's simple. Raise crops, animals, get married and start a family, and enjoy an overall carefree life. It's Story of Seasons. Do you really need anything else? The first thing I immediately noticed is that instead of 30 days, there are only 10 days before you flip over to the next season. The reason for this is due to the narrative of the game, which is divided into 6 chapters, each spanning one full cycle of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Within that time, you're expected to marry someone by the end of the year, or you'll practically be forced to marry Cecilia towards the end of the beginnings chapter. Personally, I dislike that very much because it creates unneeded time pressure, especially when some love interests, such as Nami, have a very narrow list of liked gifts. Regarding marriage, A Wonderful Life lets you create and customize your character as a boy or a girl. But regardless of the gender or pronouns you choose, you can go for one of the 4 women: Cecilia, Nami, Lumina, and Molly. Or you can court one of the 4 men: Matthew, Rock, Gustava, or the newly added Gordon. The character customization is rather limited and many of the colors look practically the same, but it's still a step up from the original release where you had to buy separate versions just to play as a boy or a girl. There are also brand new features such as a request system where villagers will ask for certain items in the town's bulletin board, and completing those earns you rewards and deepens your relationship with them. Furthermore, going to sleep no longer advances time by 7 hours as it did in the original. You'll wake up at 6 AM sharp no matter what. However, it's possible to complete a quest to get the alarm clock, which will then allow your character to nap and advance time. When compared to the original, 70 new events have been added to this release, such as new family-related ones with your child, and you can also check how close you are with each of the villagers either through their diaries or via the relationships part of the menu. There's also an encyclopedia which keeps track of the items you've obtained, followed by the Harvest Sprite Wonders, which function as achievement systems. While these new features are things that you might take for granted in modern titles, it's nice to see them added to this experience. Sadly, the UI and menu design hasn't received the same attention. The original release had some unique elements. Considering you spend a lot of time navigating the menus, it makes sense. However, in this release, the charm has been removed for a more straightforward and plain design. It's also lacking simple things like an indicator of how much water is in your watering can, and even the stamina meter is just a generic bar, unlike the hearts from the original. The 3D sprites also take some getting used to. The animations of the villagers walking around town and how the animals behave on the farm look almost like there was no proper rigging done to them, with some appearing rather robotic. Furthermore, even though I was playing on the PlayStation 5, I had many issues with the draw distance and shadow effects, where they wouldn't settle in until I got close enough, an issue that arguably shouldn't be even seen on the Switch. Despite the new events and modernized features that were added, Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life doesn't address the main problem that the original had, which is a lack of things to do. Before you know it, you'll be stuck in a repetitive cycle where the only activities are to tend to your crops and animals and then go fishing or perhaps dig for some stuff. Further, the dialogue is rather disappointing. Every single one of the villagers have basically one phrase that changes every season, and some just don't change at all. This unfortunately extends to your spouse, where even after marriage, their dialogue barely has any variation. And I can't help but scream at my pillow when I saw that there was only 5 festivals in the game, and not only are all of them forgettable cutscenes that barely last a minute, but you're not even reminded when they're going on with the pop-up or anything, like in other entries. I ended up missing the Starlight Festival a couple times, but somehow I feel like I'm glad I didn't waste my time with them. Also, instead of getting 1 unique soundtrack per season, you get a grand total of 2, Breezy and Quiet Winter, with the former being the one you'll hear all the time, at least until you change it yourself through the record player. This was a letdown for me, since while the tutorial mentions that you can get records by befriending the villagers, it takes exceedingly long without a guide. Once you've obtained a few, the song you select only plays while you're inside the farm. Yeah, all you have in Forgotten Valley is silence. There's not a single ounce of liveliness. Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life is a nostalgic fever dream for longtime fans of the series to experience a title that could be the foundation of some great gaming memories. However, over the years, this series has evolved, which makes this entry more of a novelty than a modern take on the classic title. The added quality of live systems and events makes for a nice visit to Forgotten Valley, but as the town's name suggests, this is one forgettable experience. Noisy Pixel is giving Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life a 6 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.